'tis America to me.
A name? A map?
Or the flag I
It's a certain word, it's liberty. That's America to me.
The house I live in, a plot of earth, a street, the grocer and the butcher, and the people that I meet, the children in the playground, the faces that I see, all races and religions, that's America to me.
The place I work in, the worker at my side, the little town, village where my people lived and died. The howdy and the handshake, the air and feeling free, and the right to speak my mind out, that's America to me.
Whenever freedom's threatened, it means much more to me.
Right to raise our children and live as we believe.
We know we must defend her.
Before she disappears, preserve the dream that has survived for over 200 years.
The house we live in, the good things everywhere, a land of wealth and beauty with enough for all to share.
A nation blessed by heaven
A home of liberty
And a freedom-loving people.
that's America to me.
The spirit of freedom and liberty lie in the hearts of all nations. A spirit that declares that all people should be free of tyranny and oppression. A spirit required by all men to know and understand their natural, God-given rights.
From the beginning of time and throughout history, men and women have cried out and fought to champion the cause of freedom, the individual worth of man, and the protection of their rights. The incredible, miraculous beginning of America is a story of conflict, struggle, passion, and a desire of a people to be free.
America, we are thy sons, and we shall keep thee free. For in our veins there flows the blood of Washington and Lee. No foreign flag upon thy sod shall we allow to stand. No iron shackles from abroad shall touch thy foot or hand. They mock thy army, say 'tis small, thy navy too they scorn. Have they forgot the laurels won since freedom here was born? They say thy untrained citizens will never soldiers be. Have they forgot those valiant men who fought in '63? America, thy sons are true, and if thou wilt but call, 10 million men will give to thee
their homes, their lives,
their all. For thou dost stand for what is right, for freedom of the seas. God grant old glory may always float forever in the breeze.
Freedom isn't free. You've gotta pay the price, gotta sacrifice.
Freedom is a God-given gift promising life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for every person. But freedom is not easy to come by, and it is never free. It usually comes with a price. That price can even be that of one's own life. In the early 1400s, Saint Joan of Arc, heroine of France, cried out as she tried to champion the cause of freedom, and boldly, at age 17, led the French army. When Joan was just 13 years old, she heard a voice calling her to deliver France from England, and boldly and heroically convinced the King of France to make her the military leader of their armies. Let's journey back in history now and meet this young heroine.
Joan, you shall put on masculine clothes, for you are she who has been chosen by the King of Heaven to restore the kingdom of France and to aid and protect King Charles, who has been driven from his domain. You will accomplish miraculous things.
I stood in awe. I knew that what I'd heard was real, but I didn't even know how to ride a horse, let alone lead an army into battle. With great determination, I left my home forever. After much scrutiny and rigorous examination by the king, I was finally granted my desire to lead the French army into battle.
Know all men that the most illustrious Charles, King of France, by the grace of God, is pleased to bestow upon his well-beloved servant Joan of Arc the title, emoluments, and authorities of General-in-Chief over the armies of France.
Now that I had the blessings of God and knighthood, I felt confident, energetic, and I seemed to have a great endurance for fatigue. Sometimes, when all seemed lost and my men were exhausted and discouraged, I went off to pray. I'm just a girl, barely old enough to start a family, yet I know you've chosen me. I must be brave, but I must admit that I am so afraid, as my men are losing faith. Lord, give me strength. Lord, give me courage as this young girl in armor fights against the foe. Lord, please have mercy. Lord, give me power. Renew my conviction. Help my confidence grow. Lord, give me
I'm
strength.
tired and
Lord,
discouraged,
give me
wondering
courage.
what we're
This
fighting
young girl in armor fights against the foe. Lord, please have mercy. Lord, give us power. Renew my conviction. My confidence grow. Take courage. God is with us as we fight this
Fight this bloody
war. See our banner wave knew to achieve the impossible. The victory was close at hand, and my men followed me with my indomitable courage as we charged over the walls of our enemies. The English, thinking they were safe, found themselves under attack, front and in back. As now into battle we triumphantly go.
But despite the attack on May 26, 1430, Joan was captured. She was in prison and kept in heavy chains for months. She was accused of witchcraft and of following the devil after miraculously surviving a fatal arrow wound. Her freedom would be granted only upon her denial of the voices. Nothing would change her mind, and she stood by her testimony. The fires were ignited around the stake, and they gave her one more time to recant.
Every man gives his life for what he and gives her life for what she believes. One life is all we have, and we live it as we believe in living it, and then it's gone. But to surrender what you are and live without belief is more terrible than dying.
Do you hear the people singing the song of angry men? It is the music of a people who will not be slaves again.
When the beating of your heart echoes the beating of the drums, there is a life about to start when tomorrow comes.
Will you join in our crusade? Who will be strong and stand with me? Beyond the barricade, is there a world you long to see? Then join in the fight that will give you the right to be free. Do you hear the people sing the song of angry men? This is the music of a people who will not be slaves again. When the beating of your heart echoes the beating of the drums, there is a fight about to start when tomorrow comes. Will you give all you can give so that our banner may advance?
Some will fall and some will live. Will you stand up and take your chance?
The blood of the martyrs will water the meadows of France. Do you hear the people sing the song of angry men? It is the music of a people who will not be slaves again. When the beating of your heart echoes the beating of the drums, there is a life about to start when tomorrow comes. Oh, yeah!
We hear the cries of angry men from around the world. This time, the cries are coming from the Dutch in the 1500s when they were under attack by the Spaniards. These poor Dutch people suffered many atrocities by the Spaniards. They had been taxed unjustly. Their property had been seized, and many had been thrown in prison. And not only that, thousands had been burned at the stake for simply reading their Bible. Peter van der Werf was a burgomaster, and he did everything in his power to rescue the Dutch people and their land from the cruel bonds of oppression. But the people were starving, and thousands had already died. The few remaining were surviving on cats, rats, and dogs. Babies were dying in their mother's arms, disease was rampant, and dead bodies were everywhere. Despite their longings for freedom, some began to beg the burgomaster to give up.
Would you have me surrender? I have taken an oath to hold this city. May God give me strength to keep it. Here, take my sword. Divide my flesh to appease your hunger if you will. But God willing, we will never surrender. You call us rat eaters! We are. But so long as a dog barks within these walls, they shall know that the city holds out. We will eat our left arms and fight with our right. And when we have strength no longer, we will set fire to the city and perish in the flames rather than give up our liberties. David walked into the valley with a stone clutched in his hand. He was only a boy, but he knew someone must take a stand. There will always be a valley whose mountains one will scale. There will always be perilous waters which someone must sail. Into valleys, into waters, into jungles, into hell. Let us ride home again with a story to tell. Into darkness, into danger, into storms that swift the night. Don't give in, don't give up, but give thanks for the glorious fight. You can tremble, you can fear it, but keep your fighting spirit alive, boys. The shiver of its sting you bring into battle, spring to your feet, boys. Never hold back your step for a moment. Never doubt that your courage will grow. Hold your head even higher as into the fire we go. Men, if you stand for nothing, you will fall for anything. Are there mountains that surround us? Are there walls that block the way? Knock them down! Knock that noise and forward and into the fray. Into terror, into valor, charge ahead, no! Never turn. Yes, it's into the fire we fly, and the devil will burn. Someone has to raise rally, push in, we have to rally and win, boys. When the world is saying not to, that's when you know you've got to march on, boys. Never hold back your step for a moment. Look alive or your courage will grow. Hold your head even higher as into the fire we go.
Lightning strike, let the flash of it shock you.
Yes!
Choke your fears away, pull as tight as a wire.
Let the fever spike, let the force of it rock.
Yeah!
We will have our day sailing into the fire.
Men, it is better to die free men than to live in a world ruled by tyranny.
Yes! Yes! Someone has to face the tyranny and war. That's when you've got to march on, boys.
Never hold back your step for a moment.
Never!
Look alive or your courage will grow.
Yes, it's higher and higher as into the fire we go.
Into fire.
Onward,
At the turn of the 16th century, we hear another cry for freedom. We take you to a region called Scrooby, England. In those days, everyone, rich or poor, had to belong to the Church of England. Rejecting the doctrines of the Church of England was a crime punishable by prison or even death. When the separatists attempted to escape persecution and tried to leave England, they were betrayed, robbed of all their possessions, and thrown into dungeons.
Merry old England for the rich, but we, the poor and Scrooby, have only but a scrap to eat.
We work and we slave for the social elite. We have rags on our backs, forced to beg in the streets. It's hard for us to understand. Please God, take us by the hand and lead us to a place of freedom. For the release,
Bibles are burned, suffered long without relief. Why should we endure such moral decay? Our children are taunted and tempted to stray. It's hard for us to understand. Please God, take us by the hand and lead us to a place where we can be free. A place of our own, far from tyranny's hand. Blessed by God's holy grace, is there such a land? We've got to get out, please God help us flee. A new land, a new world where we can be free. For the rich, but for the poor and Scrooby, it's time to take a stand. Lead us to a place, lead us to a place of our own.
Finally, in the late summer of 1608, the Scrooby separatists reached Holland. Though the air was charged with energy and excitement, it was not the kind of life they were looking for. The separatists refused to let their children be taught the ways of the liberal Dutch. The quest for freedom ignited the fire in their hearts, so they left their homes to board a crowded ship, crossed a vast ocean, and sailed to the promised land of America.
Far, we've been traveling far,
Without a home, not without a star.
Only want to be free. We
Huddle close, hang on to a
Boats and on the trains, we're coming to America.
never looking back again. We're coming to America. Though it seems so far away, we're traveling like today. In the eye of the storm, in the eye of the storm. Everywhere around the world, we're coming to America.
Every time that flag's unfurled, we're coming to America.
Got a dream to take us there. We're coming to America. Got a dream we've come to share. We're coming to America. We're coming to America.
Today,
We're coming to America.
today,
We're coming to America.
today.
We're coming to America today. 900 is a sweet land of liberty. All the I see, all the I see today.
coming to America. There's freedom in America, our new home in America. Here we come, America.
We're coming to America. There's freedom in America. Our new home in America. We're coming to America today. Today. America today.
The first half of the voyage was rather smooth, but then they were faced with bad storms. Sickness and even death set in, and it became doubtful that they would even make it to America. And when they landed, they had nothing but their faith to sustain them.
Our fathers, God, to thee, author
The colonists were beginning to feel comfortable in their new world, but they were still under the rule of the King of England, and he was making their lives miserable. They were ordered to fight England's wars and pay for them with heavy taxes under unjust laws. These demands became so unbearable and intolerable that the colonists began to rebel against the king.
Tonight.
It's yes, your majesty.
Of course, your majesty.
Whatever you like, your majesty.
But what about us, your majesty? Why all these usurpations, your majesty? The Stamp Act,
The Sugar Act.
the Intolerable Acts. What are you thinking, your majesty?
You wage war against us.
You are cruel. You are barbaric, your majesty. You are guilty of tyranny, your majesty.
Tyranny? Tyranny, you say? Oh, the colonists. The colonists. Oh, what do the colonists have on their minds tonight? What is it you want this time? Always complaining about something, aren't you? You see, I am the king. And you will say, yes, your majesty, to everything I tell you.
It's no, your majesty. It's war, your majesty. A revolution, your majesty. Yes, your majesty. The answer is war.
And war it shall be!
The air was supercharged with the buzz and the fever of revolution. People could smell it in the air, and they could feel it in their bones. It was Patrick Henry who ignited that spark as he spoke these famous words to the Virginia representatives.
Sir, we are not weak if we make a proper use of those means which the God of nature hath placed within our power. 3 millions of people armed in the holy cause of liberty, and in a country as that in which we possess, are invincible by any enemy which they can send against us. Besides, sir, we shall not fight our battles alone. There is a just God who presides over the destinies of nations, who will raise up friends to fight our battles for us. The battle, sir, is not just to the strong alone. It is to the vigilant, the active, the brave. Besides, sir, we have no election if we were base enough to desire it. It is now too late to retire from the contest. Our chains are forged, and their clanking may be heard on the plains of Boston. The war is inevitable, and let it come. I repeat it, sir, let it come. It is in vain to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war has actually begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it the gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of chains or slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death.
The colonists were ready for war. A few brave men warned the Minutemen of Lexington and Concord that the British were coming.
The British are coming!
Come, my children, come. So listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere on the 18th of April in 75. Hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. He said to his friend, if the British march by land or sea from the town tonight, hang a lantern aloft in the belfry arch of the North Church Tower as a signal light. One of by land and two of by sea, and I on the opposite shore will be, ready to ride and spread the alarm through every Middlesex village and farm, for the country folk to be up and to arm. The fate of the nation was riding that night, and that spark struck out by that steed in his flight. Now you know the rest of the story from the books that you've read, how the British regulars fired and fled, how the farmers give them ball for ball, from behind each fence and farmyard wall, chasing the redcoats down the lane, then crossing the fields to emerge again. Under the tree and at the turn of the road, and only pausing to fire and to load. Now this story shall be told forevermore, upon each housetop and through each open door, and people will awaken to listen, to hear of the midnight message of Paul Revere. Listen, can you hear those hoofbeats across the land? Can you hear the whinnying of his horse? Are you ready to ride with Paul Revere?
They saw two lanterns in the North Church Tower. Ride, ride, they knew this was to be the fateful hour. Ride, ride, for a man to ride and to our Lord. Every village and every one to awaken them and call to arms. It was the ride of Paul Revere. Ready, guys? Here we go. Ride, ride till the night be cold. Ride, ride till the truth be told. Ride, ride like the men of old. Ride like Paul Revere. Stop the horse, boys. I wonder if 200 years ahead, ride, ride, if they will ride or if they'll stay in bed. Ride, ride, with faith and freedom within them guide. And when they hear that midnight cry and the hoofbeats cross that moonlit sky, will they ride like Paul Revere? Ride, ride, till the night be cold. Ride, ride, till the truth be told. Ride, ride like the man of old. Ride like Paul Revere.
By July 1776, the colonists were still under the rule of the king. There was a lot at stake. Declaring independence was a very serious matter. For under English law, if they went against the king, they would be treated as traitors. If they joined the rebels, they risked not only their own lives, but also the lives of their families. The colonists sent representatives to the Continental Congress to discuss independence from Great Britain. The colonies needed to be unanimous in their decision to adopt this resolution. These were wise men of great character, and they knew all that they stood to lose. And knowing all of this, they still chose to declare independence.
Sink or swim, live or die, survive or perish. I give my hand and my heart to this vote. There is a divinity that shapes our ends. Why then should we defer this declaration? We may not live to the time where this declaration shall be made good, but this declaration will stand. It may cost blood, and it may cost treasure, but it will stand. And it will richly compensate for both.
These words will go forth to the world when our bones are dust. To the slave in bondage they will speak freedom. To the mechanic in his workshop, hope. That parchment will speak to kings in language sad and terrible as the trump of the archangel. You have trampled on the rights of mankind long enough. At last, the voice of human woe has pierced the ear of God and called his judgment down.
Sign. Even if the next moment the gibbet's rope is around your neck.
Sign. Sign if the next moment this hall echoes with the sound of the falling axe.
Sign, by all your hopes in life, or death, as husbands, fathers, as men with our names to the parchment, or be accursed forever.
Sign, not only for yourselves, but for all ages. For that parchment will be the textbook of freedom, the Bible of the rights of man forever.
Father, the old world is baptized in blood. Father, it is drenched in the blood of millions who have been executed in slow, grinding oppression. Yes. Were my soul trembling on the wing of eternity? Were this hand freezing to death? Were my voice choking with the last struggle? I would still, with the last gasp of my voice, beg you to sign this declaration. And let the simple truth be known. God has decreed America is to be free from oppression. We hold these truths
To be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government.
Gentlemen, today we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. This is the moment we have waited for. This is the moment. This is the day when I send all my doubts and demons on their way. Every endeavor I have made ever is coming into play, is here and now today.
This is the time. The moment are in rhyme. Give me this moment, this precious chance. I'll gather up my past and make some sense at last. This is the moment. When are we done? All of the dreaming, scheming, and screaming become one.
This is the day. See it sparkle and shine. When all I've lived for becomes mine. For all these years, I faced the world alone. And now the time has come to prove to them we've made it on our own. This is the moment, our final test. Destiny beckoned, I never reckoned second best. I won't look down, I will not fall. This is the moment, the sweetest moment of them all. This is the moment we face.
America was now a new nation. But, as we know, freedom is never free. On the very day the Declaration was signed, England's own General Howe sailed into New York Harbor with the largest armada ever assembled. This was going to be a fight to the bitter end. We needed George Washington to lead us to victory. But after losing 5 very important battles in New York and being chased all over New Jersey, Washington's men were in rags and starving to death when he positioned them on the on the west side of the Delaware. It was a pathetic sight. The brutal Hessian mercenaries kept an eye on them from Trenton. The turning point of the war was found in the heart of Washington himself when he read Tom Paine's crisis letter, number 1.
These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of their country. But he that stands by it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered.
In our day, we need more heroes. Someone to lead us through our trials, our struggles, or maybe even guide us. Someone like George Washington.
Come on, everybody. We're singing about the founder of our country, our first general, our first president, the man to whom we owe so much. He had hope in America when all looked lost. So put your hands together and clap along. You know who I'm talking about.
George Washington, America's #1 son. He is the one to get things done. George Washington, the redcoats were on the run. We're #1, thanks to George Washington.
Hey everybody, let's talk about George Washington. He was a great man of war, and every soldier looked up to him with great trust. He had absolute courage and determination in every good cause. His love of country and sense of duty were matched by no man. He was the most respected man in America, and should be today.
The Constant's army had lost nearly every major battle and was on the verge of defeat. And the Hessians were still coming on strong. These men were freezing, starving, had rags on their feet, and not many weapons. Washington's next move replicates what all great leaders have done throughout history.
Come on, men! Let's get those Hessians! George Washington, he is the one to keep us free from tyranny. Just wait. Come on! Let's go! Everybody row! 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 Come on, let's go! Through the ice and snow, it was getting harder to row. Oh, don't you know, it's a real tough go. Oh no, oh no!
God is on our side, so pray with me tonight. Oh dear God, what can we do? We must save our country, we need help from you. Oh, please help us through this terrible night. Can I ask for anything more?
We're hungry, we're cold, this is more! So took those Hessians by storm, by surprise attacking the fort. Now they're all on the run, thanks to George Washington. George Washington. He is the one. He is the one to keep us free from tyranny.
Even though the war was won, England was still breathing down the necks of America and would not let go. America was once again at war, the War of 1812. England bombarded Fort McHenry to break the will of the American people. However, Americans still stood strong and were willing to once again die for their freedom. Both sides had captured prisoners. Francis Scott Key was appointed to negotiate the release of the prisoners.
Men, prisoners, I have great news for you. Tonight you are free.
Not so fast, Mr. Key. You know too much, and plans have changed. We are attacking Fort McHenry tonight. Fort McHenry must either lower the colors of your flag, or we will destroy the fort.
You can't shell that fort. You have no justifications for this war.
We don't need justification for this war. And we have told your people that if they would lower that flag and surrender the fort, the shelling would stop immediately. Fort McHenry would then be under British rule.
Fort McHenry was within striking distance of the British ships.
How many British ships are there?
About 16.
Mr. Key, can you still see the flag?
Is the flag still flying over the ramparts?
Every time the bomb would explode near the flag, Francis Scott Key could see the flag illuminated in the red glare of that bomb.
Please, God, keep that flag flying.
During that bombardment, the flag had suffered many direct hits, but it never fell. While on the ship that morning, Francis Scott Key penned these words.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Then conquer we must when our cause it is just, and this be our motto: in God is our trust, and the star-spangled banner in triumph shall wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
The victory of that day renewed the Americans' faith that God would be their protector through any peril. And our flag still flies triumphantly today.
Sound of a distant drummer, I hear the trumpets call.
I hear the tramp of a penman marching, stirring my my heart and soul.
I hear the stars and stripes forever. I hear the cymbals crash. Leading the way in the grand parade, I thrill to my country's flag. I love Old Glory, in her I see the hopes of all men who would be free. I love Old Glory, long may she reign over America, the homeland of the brave.
Held upon his heart,
Pledging his love for God and country, yearning to do his part. May he grow up in a land of honor, never to see his flag
Trampled and torn by the hands of the faithless, burned like a common rag. I love Old Glory, in her I see the hopes of all men who would be free. I love Old Glory, long may she reign over America, the homeland of the brave. I see the wheels of a cortege rolling onto a patriot's grave. I hear the roar of a cannon volley, honoring one so brave. God rest the soul of the valiant soldier, willing to die for truth.
carrying thousands of heroes, westward, through red, white, and blue.
I love Old Glory, in her I see the hopes of all men who would be free. I love Old Glory, long may she reign over America, the homeland of the
I love Old Glory.
And America's message of freedom spread fast throughout the world. Immigrants flooded America for the opportunity of a new life. The downtrodden peoples of the world flocked here by the millions. It was the hope of all men to live together as a family, safely and well fed, to build a legacy of opportunity, to own a piece of land, a home, and a thriving business. They just wanted a better life. And when they saw the Statue of Liberty, they knew they had come to the right place.
There she stood, with their crown of 7 spikes, shining forth and inviting the 7 continents and the 7 seas of the world to come to the land of the free. Clutched in the arm were the tables of law, inscripted with the date 1776, signifying the Declaration of Independence, which formed the first nation of a truly free people. At her feet was the broken chain of tyranny that had dominated the history of the entire world until the birth of America. And in her uplifted arm rose the glowing torch, offering the light of hope to those living in a darkened world of oppression. Tears streamed down their faces, and they fell on bended knees, for they knew they had found their home at last.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean, the prairies, to the ocean, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America. God bless America. God bless America. My home, sweet
This evening, we have had the opportunity to hear the cry of freedom from some very passionate and talented young people. And if I may say, some very handsome young men and some lovely young ladies. Some of the best that America has to offer. Let me ask you, did they inspire you? 236 years ago today, our founding fathers signed the Declaration of Independence. They then had to defend that declaration, and they went up against the strongest, most well-trained, largest army in the world, and they defeated them. May I ask that we use that enthusiasm that we've received here tonight to be able to stand bold and stand strong for those freedoms that our founders gave to us, because they are being taken away from us daily. We must stand strong, because freedom and independence will go forth to American hearts like the voice of God. And our work will not be done until every man and woman is privileged with the blessings of freedom. Every one of us here long for the day when our troops will be home from war. If I may, I'll quote an American soldier when he said, "I am the guardian of freedom and the American way of life." In America, we all share in the responsibility of protecting and upholding freedom. Now, the fight for freedom is not easy, and it will cost blood, and it will cost treasure. But we will conquer all foes, and glory will be our reward. We will never accept defeat, and we will never quit. United we stand, but divided we will fall. And may God continue to bless these United States of America.
Bugle calls us to the line from the mists of the long ago. See how the battle sabers shine, and the shadows the flags all throw. For the glory, for the land forever free, for the last best hope of mankind, for the better part of me, for the glory, for the words we hold so dear. Let us give the last for measure, gathered here, for the glory.
Has come at last. Let the drums start the long, long war.
Bridges burn, the die is cast. To His grace I commend my soul. For the glory, for the deep sea before. For the men who will come after, we will wage this bloody war for the glory, for the truth we hold so dear. Let us give the last full measure gathered here for the glory.
Go out and tell our story to your daughters and your sons. Make them hear you. Make them hear you.
Tell them in our struggles we were not the only ones. Make them hear you. Make them hear you.
And say to those who would blame us for the way we chose to fight, that sometimes there are battles which are more than black or white.
I could not put down my sword when justice was my right. Make them hear you.
Go out and tell our story. Let it echo far and wide. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. Wherever freedom's spread, you the power to turn the tide. Make them hear you. Make them hear you.
Sword can be a servant or the power of the pen.
Teach every child to raise his voice, and then my brothers there. Will justice be demanded by 10 million righteous men? Make them hear you.